Hey everybody, I'd like to thank you for taking a few minutes to watch this video and learn more about robotics and AI and the impact it's going to have on the workforce. These two technologies are going to be completely transformational over the next few years on all aspects of our lives, and getting literacy and understanding about this will have a huge impact on, I think, your lives and the lives of the children that you're working with and trying to prepare them for the future. My name is Dennis Combites. I am the founder of Robots.Education and the CEO of Easy Robot. I've been involved in educational robotics for about a decade. In that time, I have taught and demonstrated robotics to more than 20,000 students in classrooms from around the world, across Canada, the US, UK, Middle East, Australia, New Zealand. And the strategies we've developed are working exceptionally well, across all those countries, across a broad range of ages, et cetera. But we'll talk more about that in a moment. I really want to get into understanding the impact that robotics and AI are going to have, because it is so much larger and coming so much faster than people understand. So I often fly around the world as well, speaking at education conferences. I've helped more than 22,000 educators understand this very subject and kind of learn best practices for what they can do to prepare their students. So where I like to start is with a few statistics that are pretty daunting, and kind of paint a picture that is important for us to understand. We know that robotics and AI is going to bring a lot of benefit to humanity. It's going to allow us to, go further into space, bigger, faster, stronger, even smaller, even like with regards to medicines and healthcare. So these technologies are going to have a lot of benefit for us, but they're also going to bring an unprecedented level of disruption for huge percentages of society. The forecasts that are out there, and these are not mine, these are what are out there, you can search these on the internet. The forecasts say 20 to 47% job loss over the next 10 years. Now, to put those statistics into perspective, in the USA, that represents 30 to 70 million people. We're talking about hundreds of millions of people globally losing their employment to technology, right? And so at the same time, we'll see tens of millions, hundreds of millions of new jobs globally that these technologies will also create. But we're going to see a real challenge because the people losing their jobs don't have the skills necessary to get these new jobs. Now, this skill gap is going to result in huge need for adult retraining. The World Economic Forum is forecasting 1 billion people will need retraining by 2030. That's just 7 years from now. And when we hear a stat like that, it points to something very clear that's happening. And that is our education system needs to be giving these new world skills to all of our students. So I want to run through how these technologies are going to change all industries and kind of paint a picture for why robotics and AI literacy is critical education right now, today. So we talked about 20 to 47% job loss. Stalin's got a quote that he's famous for, which is, "One man's death is a tragedy, a million men's death is a statistic." And I want to kind of apply that same knowledge or that same thinking with regards to the stats around job loss. Because when we think 20 to 47% job loss, 30 to 70 million people in the US losing their employment, that's a big number. But it's easy to dismiss that number because it's so large. We go, that's going to be huge change. Yeah, there's huge changes coming. And we kind of leave it at that level. But I want to dig into this a little bit to show what this is going to look like as it manifests across society, because it's going to paint a picture that reveals that we need to get this education to our youth immediately. So I'm going to go through a bunch of different industries, and I'd like to start with the transportation industry. And I start there because we all know that there are self-driving vehicles out there now. We've all seen the news, we've heard the stories. A lot of people don't know that these are actually being used in places, right? So in the oil sands in Alberta, in mines in Australia, there are self-driving vehicles. In San Francisco, self-driving cabs have been approved within a region. In Toronto and Canada, there were self-driving trucks on the road in the summer of last year. These technologies are right around the corner. They're still being developed and improved and enhanced, but they're getting really close. So in my live presentations, I'll always ask the audience this question. If we have self-driving trucks, do we need truck drivers? And the answer back is always no. Self-driving buses, do we need bus drivers? No. Taxi drivers? No. Transportation is one of, if not the largest employers, right? So we're going to see a huge swath of drivers that are going to be losing their employment over the next decade. Now, let's imagine for a second, let's go back to that, just that one person, right? We talked about Stalin's quote. Let's think about the impact for one truck driver. So imagine you're a truck driver, you've been driving for 20 years, you lose your job, you come home, it's a Tuesday afternoon, you sit down on the couch, you go, how am I going to support my family? Truck drivers have the skill of driving trucks. They don't have these new world skills that are needed to get these new jobs that are also coming. So how can a truck driver support their family today? And if I ask that in a live setting, the number one answer I get back is maybe they can get a job in retail. And I'll be like, okay, great. So let's look at what's happening in the retail sector. There's a couple of different things we have to understand. Firstly, online retail is putting a lot of pressure on brick and mortar stores, right? Retail itself is healthy. Online retail is growing, causing contraction at brick and mortar stores. So that's the first thing. And so it's already a little bit competitive. But then let's look at what's happening in the stores themselves. We have a push towards self-checkouts. That's been happening for a little while. We've got warehouse robots coming, well, being employed in some places. We've got robots that can stock shelves. We've got customer service robots coming, right? So these technologies are going to mean that stores need less people in order to operate. The physical stores have less customers, so they can also afford less staff. So physical stores are contracting. So they can't absorb the people that have, the truck drivers, bus drivers, and cab drivers that have lost their jobs because they're shedding people as well. So now what industry can absorb transportation and retail, which are two of the mega industries? The number one answer I'll get back is maybe hospitality. But if you've been in a McDonald's recently, you've seen the touchscreen ordering. And at the McDonald's by me, there used to be 4 or 5 people across the front counter. Now there's 1, right? And we've got robotic chefs coming, robotic waiters, bartenders. There's robotic coffee shops. There's a hotel in Japan run by 10 staff. The rest of the hotel is serviced by robots. There's a restaurant in China that has no people, no staff. Robots receive the food, take your order, prepare the food, deliver the food. These changes are enormous. But the big thing here is hospitality can't absorb these other industries because hospitality also needs less people. Manufacturing, that's been a relentless pursuit towards automation. Manufacturing is shedding people. Agriculture, we have self-driving combines. We have robots that can pick fruit, sort fruit according to ripeness and size. So we've got technology and automation coming into that industry as well. So it needs less people as well. So it can't absorb the people that have lost their jobs. Now, at the same time, remember, there's tens of millions, hundreds of millions of new jobs here in the high-tech sector. But we've got this huge skill gap, right? And think today about the way that we're graduating kids from our schools. It stands to reason that, if 20 to 40% of jobs are going to be eliminated that have historically been filled by people that were graduating from our schools, then those 20 to 40% of people, we better find new skills. We better find a way to get them these new skills so they can get these new jobs, because we cannot graduate them into these industries that are shrinking, right? But I did talk about the World Economic Forum talking about how 1 billion people would need retraining and upskilling, because there's that third group that's critically important to understand. Those are all the jobs that are going to evolve from low tech to high tech. And a great example of that is teaching. Teaching historically for most people is not a high tech career. Yes, we use technology, but it's not a high tech career. But if you want to get a job as a new teacher, you're significantly more likely to get employed if you understand robotics, 3D printing, AI, advanced computer science, data science, cybersecurity, right? There's the skill gap in the workplace. There's the skill gap in our schools. You want to get a job as a new teacher and you've got those words on your resume, you're going to get hired much faster. You're going to get the jobs you want, the assignments, the schools you want to work in, close to home, all of those benefits. So it's important to understand teaching not a high-tech career, but for the next little while it is. See, it's not just about these physical jobs, these blue-collar jobs. AI and robotics is also going to impact, white-collar jobs as well, things like accounting, lawyers, right? There's AI out there that can research case law, right? And can go through evidence of emails and stuff very quickly, looking for the right keywords and, and figuring out if there's evidence that can be brought into the court case. So there's, even in the legal profession, which is very much a thinking profession, there's less need for junior lawyers because AI can do some of those jobs, right? So we're seeing this massive pivot. And I think one of the challenges that we face in education is we think about robotics as an industry. We think about AI as an industry. This is very similar to how we viewed the computer industry back in the 80s and 90s when I was in school. When I was in high school, I could have taken computers 10, 20, and 30 in high school and learned to become a programmer. The vast majority of students weren't getting any education in this, but the people that were specifically interested in these fields could get it. That's very similar to what we're seeing right now with robotics education in schools, where there's a club or a program and a few students are taking it, but most kids aren't. So most kids aren't getting any education in this. And I'll get into those stats in a second here because those are just really, really frightening stats. But before I get there, to just paint a picture of how complete this transition is and why everybody needs this literacy, I want to reference my experience. About 7 years ago, I was at a conference called Robo Universe, and I was giving a keynote presentation, same type of information as this. And then over the next 2 days at this conference, I met 20, 25 people from the fashion industry. It surprised me. First couple, I thought they must have a personal interest in robotics. But you meet 3 or 4 people in an hour and you start saying, wait a second, there's a pattern here. So I started asking them, like, you're the 4th person I've met from fashion in an hour at this robotics conference. Why are there so many of you here? And what they all told me was, if you want to get a job in fashion, 2 of the most important skills are 3D printing and robotics. 7 years ago. Now think about what happens in your schools if a student comes up and says, I want to get into fashion design. Are we thinking to tell them, you better get down to the computer lab? You better get into the maker space or the fabrication studio? No, it's just not how we think about fashion. Because if we think about fashion and we say, what skills does a fashion designer need? And it would be color theory, ability to draw, ability to sew, creative, risk taker, resilient, because people aren't always going to love your fashions. Lots of soft skills in fashion design. Let's think about the skills of a roboticist. Okay, engineering minded, physics, math, computational thinking, a lot of hard skills over here, right? So if I had longer arms, they'd be further apart on the spectrum. But now they go like this. And I want to explain the reason why, because this beautifully paints an understanding why all children need this literacy. Imagine this circle represents all the fashion that has ever been created in history. It's all in here. If we add 3D printing, robotics, and AI, what we can create is greater, right? With 3D printing, you can create new designs that couldn't be created any other way, or certainly not cost effectively. And with robotics and AI, you can create smart clothing that responds to light and sound and temperature, wears own biorhythms. We get things like Fitbit, smartwatches, smart shoes, smart socks, smart shirts, right? All of these incredible innovations. So let me ask you this simple question. If you own a fashion design company and you're hiring one new fashion designer, do you want the person that gives you this potential or this potential? Now, I've asked this question of 22,000 educators, and everybody says the greater potential. It's an easy answer. But I think that the thought process often stops there, because here's something we have to understand. Once these people are available, these people stop getting work, right? And so it's going to get very competitive across a broad range of industries that are not high-tech industries. Do you have this literacy or don't you? If you're hiring a new business manager for your company, Do you want somebody that understands these technologies and can bring those benefits to your company, or somebody who doesn't? If you have those, you're likely to be successful. If you don't have those, you're competing against companies that do have those. So within business and finance, these skills are important. Within marketing and communications, they're important, right? These skills, robotics and AI, go everywhere. And just like within the computer industry or computer education, we used to teach programming, and we still do. That's still important. But we recognize that because there's software in all these different companies and industries, everybody needs computer literacy, because the internet gives you extra, capabilities. Because knowing how to use Google Docs and Sheets and all of those things give you extra capabilities. Everybody needs computer literacy to be competitive. The same will be true for robotics and AI. But here's an important distinction. Took the computer industry 30 years to grow up, because we had to shrink a mainframe from the size of a classroom to fit in our pocket and on our wrist. But the hard work has been done. The technology is already there. The sensors are incredible now. The computing power is incredible, right? So robotics and AI won't take 30 years to grow up. It will grow up in 5 to 7 years. It will grow up as quickly as people can go, it would be great if we had technology that could do this. 5 to 7 years, that technology is coming out. And being in the robotics industry, I can tell you there are hundreds of thousands of engineers working on hundreds of thousands of different robotic applications and AIs. And over the next 5 to 7 years, we don't see it right now because it's happening behind the curtains. It's in the R&D phase. But over the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to start to see these curtains come up, and we are going to see dramatic shift. A great example of that is ChatGPT, right? AI now is becoming very commonplace. You go onto any social media and it's like, oh, I can teach you how to use this. Wow, I just used ChatGPT for this, for that. And it's a little bit of novelty right now, but there's real power back there that is transformational. And we're talking about one AI, right? Like there's so much change that's coming. So I'm a huge proponent that all of our kids need these new world skills right now. And that's important for two reasons. One, we want our students to be graduating and be employable. And two, if they don't have these skills, they're going to drop into this other pool looking for jobs. And it's going to be very, very competitive for these entry-level jobs that don't pay well. Every student that we graduate that doesn't have these high-tech skills is going to be competing with everybody who's lost their job, right? So it's going to get very competitive. And there's an important thing to understand as well. The advantage of the person that understands this and the person that doesn't, this is not just an individual to individual relationship. This is city to city, community to community, state to state, or province to province, country to country. The people that have this understanding are going to be advantaged. The ones that don't are going to suffer economic hardship. And I love to think about the example of New York City and New Jersey, right? So let's imagine a scenario where New York City doesn't get into this education in a big way, and New Jersey dives right in and gets into this in a big way. A few years down the road, New York City's hiring new teachers. New Jersey's, people from New Jersey, of course, would apply for work in New York City. And so you've got all these applications of people that have these high-tech skills. Those people are getting the jobs. So New Jersey's getting all of these jobs. New York people are not getting the jobs. And then we've got business managers and stuff. Again, the jobs are going to the high-tech people from Jersey. What's happening in New York City? Unemployment is high. People can't afford their rents. They can't afford to go out to restaurants and buy electronics. And so you start to get this economic spiral that is going to impact all industries and all people. And with that, with the high unemployment comes increased crime, people suffering from emotional challenges because they feel zeroed out. They feel like they don't belong in the world, right? So in New York, things are pretty tough. What's happening across the Hudson in New Jersey? Everybody's got a job. Life is great. We're going to see these challenges happen, right? Now, imagine what happens in a school where all of the students understand this technology, right? Or if a city gets into this in a big way, or a state gets into this in a big way, or a country, what kind of economic advantage does that give that region? And it's huge. right? So hopefully this first part here has helped with an understanding of why this education is so critically important. But now what I want to do is just take a moment to show you, okay, we now know how important it is. Let's do a check-in and see how we're doing in our schools today. So this, I apologize for my bad drawing skills. This is my bell curve of engineering mindedness. Over on this side, we've got our kids that love engineering, programming, physics, math. You know, at the extreme end, there's not very many of them that just love it. And over here, we've got our kids that love arts, literature, drama, music, and sports. Most kids, somewhere in the middle. In schools that offer robotics programs today, average enrollment is 3% of boys, 0.3% of girls. And I've verified these stats with 22,000 educators. These are solid numbers. Let's put some meat on those bones there. In a school with 2,000 students, if they have a robotics program, and most don't, but let's say the school has a robotics program, 2,000 students, an average would be 30 boys and 3 girls in their robotics club or program, right? So think about what's coming, and then think about 33 students out of 2,000 getting this education, 1,967 not getting any literacy about these two technologies that are going to transform all aspects of how we live. I believe it's a crisis. At the middle school level, enrollment's a little bit higher, 15% at the high end, 5% at the low end. You know, definitely more boys than girls again. In the middle school level, what the platform is makes a big difference. There are some products that do tangibly better than others, but this is an important thing to understand. And this, I think, is a challenge that we face as educators. The kids that are enrolled in these programs are always our most engineering-minded students. But when we were going through and talking about the changes coming to society, we talked about truck drivers, bus drivers, cab drivers, chefs, waiters, waitresses, bartenders, baristas, people working in manufacturing and agriculture, accountants, fashion designers, teachers. Do those sound like our most engineering-minded students? No. Here's the challenge. The kids that need this education the most from a societal perspective and for these kids, the ones that need it the most are the ones on the left side of this bell curve. But the way that robotics is being taught overwhelmingly does not reach them. So we're not doing what we need to do to prepare people for this incredible shift that is coming. Now, I mentioned earlier that I have demonstrated and taught robotics to more than 20,000 students in classrooms. And I just want to run through the stats of what we see after, if I go into a school and do a presentation, what we will typically see at the high school level is 25 to 45% of students interested in learning robotics. That's an increase for boys. We can go from 30 boys to 300 in about a day. And we can go from 3 girls to 300 out of 1,000 in about a day. So this is a massive increase. It's a 10-fold increase for boys. For girls, it's actually close to a 100-fold increase. At the middle school level, we're doing even better. We get 90% of students interested in learning robotics. And when we think about the changes that are coming, 90% enrollment is a solution. That's virtually everybody getting the literacies that they need to get these new world jobs, right? To be competitive, to get all these jobs that are going to transform from low tech to high tech. If we want to do the best we can for our students today, this is the kind of solution we need. We have to reach children across the whole spectrum. Now, I'm not saying it's not important to reach these kids. We have to take the kids that are the engineering-minded kids and lift them as high as we can. But that's, historically where we've been focused. And 2 or 3 years ago, it would have been perfectly great to say, robotics is coming along. We should have an option so the kids that are interested in learning this have a way that they can learn it. That would have been progressive, forward thinking, gold star for the principal and the teachers that are doing that, because that was helping to prepare kids as well as we could. But what we know now with these changes that are coming, the literacy aspect for everybody is probably more important. And one of the challenges, one of the reasons we see low levels of engagement here is because we're going straight into proficiency and mastery, right? We don't do that in any other subject area. We always go literacy first and then we build up. But today with the options when we're doing first robotics competitions and stuff like that, or working with other products that are very technical in nature, we make it into an engineering program, and it's very challenging for people to get started with that. The way we teach robotics is a little bit different. We start with inspiration. We start with engagement. And so we draw in massively higher numbers. And then we also teach the engineering and we teach the programming. Our kids learn variables and all of those other things. So we get the kids to the point where they need to be. We just start differently and teach differently, and it produces dramatically improved results. So hopefully this information has been helpful to you to understand, kind of the change that's happening in the workforce and society and what that means we need to do within education. If you're interested in enhancing your robotics program or starting a robotics program in your school, we'd be happy to talk with you on a one-on-one basis, find out more about your exact circumstances, and then we can make recommendations to help you be able to get more of your kids engaged in this. We've helped schools find money. There's lots of solutions we have. So if you have the desire to get this going in your school, we would love to hear from you and help you along that journey. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day.